Hello everybody and welcome to another One Stop Wrestling podcast. I'm Alex, and with WrestleMania 40 just around the corner, today we're going to look back at some of the most shocking moments in WrestleMania history. The Showcase of the Immortals has been WWE's and arguably wrestling's premier event for 40 years now, with some amazing moments and matches taking place each year, and the stage where superstars create moments that will live on and on in wrestling folklore. Today, we will be looking at the most shocking moments that fans genuinely didn't see coming, and moments that were, for good or bad, genuinely jaw-dropping moments. So, without further ado, here are our top 5 most shocking moments in WrestleMania history. Number 5. Daniel Bryan loses the World Heavyweight Championship in 18 seconds. WrestleMania 28. The first entry on this list is one that had ramifications for the WWE for years to come, as it unintentionally started a whole movement for the backing of one superstar. That superstar was Daniel Bryan, who walked into WrestleMania 28 as the World Heavyweight Champion after a great heel turn that resulted in him cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase and becoming an annoying heel champion. But in this sense, it worked perfectly and made you want to see a cool babyface take the belt away from him. The job was tasked to 2012 Royal Rumble winner Sheamus, who had turned babyface the year before, and the WWE were pushing him hard. And then came the match. I say that term loosely, as Daniel Bryan gave his on-screen girlfriend AJ Lee a kiss and immediately turned into a brogue kick and was pinned in 18 seconds. You could see the idea WWE had in their head to make Sheamus look like a conquering hero, but it had the opposite effect, as the fans wanted to see a long competitive bout between the two excellent in-ring workers, and what they got was the complete opposite. The months after the match, Sheamus's run as world champion fell flat and he lost steam as a babyface, and on the other side, the crowd slowly got behind Bryan, feeling like he was cheated from a great WrestleMania match, and the Yes movement was born. So while at the time the match was maligned by fans, if it didn't happen, we may never have gotten the amazing spectacle that was WrestleMania 30. Number 4. Hulk Hogan slams Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 3. In this day and age, it's hard to look at a power slam as a shock moment, even if it is done to a much larger opponent. But back in 1987, in the main event of WrestleMania 3, we had one of the most iconic images in WrestleMania history, and one that still gets talked about today and will get talked about for generations to come. Andre the Giant was the immovable object in wrestling, standing 7'4" and weighing over 500 pounds, and back then, when kayfabe wasn't really a thing, it seemed impossible that anybody could slam Andre. So when that moment happened in the main event of WrestleMania, the Pontiac Silverdome and allegedly 90,000 fans were left in shock and awe at the Giant being raised above Hogan's head and slammed down to the mat, which then led to the most famous leg drop in wrestling, sealing the win for the superhero-like character of Hulk Hogan in an all-time great Mania moment. This is one of the most iconic images ever in wrestling, let alone WrestleMania, and could easily have gone on a top 5 moments list alone. We deem it shocking because of the lack of kayfabe back then, which is why fans were so stunned, as they never would have deemed it possible for somebody to slam Andre, even though it had been done before. This match also catapulted WWE to new heights due to the impact Andre and Hogan had in pop culture. Number 3. Seth Rollins cashes in, WrestleMania 31. Back in 2015, WWE were in a predicament. They had booked a WrestleMania main event that the fans didn't want. Roman Reigns challenged Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, but what was supposed to be Reigns' triumphant babyface crowning moment turned into a nightmare, as the crowd completely rejected his force-fed push from the WWE machine, something that incidentally carried on for years after this moment. Brock Lesnar was the dominant heel monster champion, and to have him retain the title in the main event would have been an incredibly flat ending to the show of shows. So WWE had to come up with something to placate the fans who didn't want this match and didn't want either guy to win, and they did it in the best and most shocking way possible. Reigns and Lesnar, to their credit, were having a fantastic World Championship match, full of physicality and excellent sequences. However, after both men were left exhausted and prone towards the end of the match, one of the most ingenious things happened as Seth Rollins, who was the current Money in the Bank briefcase holder and had incidentally lost to Randy Orton in the opening contest, came sprinting to the ring with the briefcase in tow to a massive pop and demanded that it be cashed in right in the middle of the main event match of the biggest show of the year. Rollins turned the match into a triple threat, and after curb stomps to each of his opponents, Rollins would become the new WWE World Champion in one of the most brilliant but shocking booking decisions in Mania history. WWE fixed their problem in one fell swoop, and the crowd went home completely happy. Michael Cole's call was perfect when describing the moment, as he said, "Seth Rollins with the heist of the century." Number 2. Steve Austin makes a deal with the devil. WrestleMania X7. Nobody saw this one coming. The two biggest stars of the biggest boom period in wrestling were clashing in the main event of the grandest stage for the WWE Championship in Austin's hometown, and the anticipation was sky high. Steve Austin and the champion, The Rock, both went into the match as huge babyfaces, which was a first in terms of the dynamic for a Rock-Austin match, so booking the ending may have been a tad difficult for WWE, as they would have wanted to keep both men as strong as possible. However, we never assumed they would go the way they did. Just past the halfway mark of an already brilliant match, the chairman of the WWE and one of the biggest rivals of Steve Austin gingerly made his way down to the ring after going through a street fight with his own son Shane earlier in the night. With many speculating what on earth Vince McMahon was doing out there, The Rock hit a people's elbow on Austin and went for the cover, only to have McMahon pull The Rock off of Austin, and what ensued was one of the most shocking heel turns in wrestling history. Austin and McMahon then worked together for the rest of the match, teaming up to hit some vicious chair shots on The Rock. Eventually, after 16 shots from the steel, Austin became the WWE Champion and unbelievably shook hands with McMahon in a sight nobody thought they'd ever see. The subsequent heel run never really worked for Austin, as the crowd didn't want to boo one of the most popular superstars of all time. And in hindsight, an audible should have been called and Austin should have stunned McMahon, instead of share a beer with the most hated rival he ever had. And number 1, the streak is over. WrestleMania 30. Every wrestling fan knows where they were when this moment happened. This is perhaps the biggest shock in the entire history of wrestling, up there with when Bruno Sammartino lost to Ivan Koloff in Madison Square Garden. It was reportedly the exact same reaction when The Undertaker lost to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. Utter stunned silence. That was all that it could be described as after Shad Patton's hand hit the mat for the third time following a third F5 from Brock Lesnar. Nobody saw this coming. The bookmakers' odds were stacked so highly in favour of The Undertaker, and fans just didn't see a legitimate reason as to why Brock would win that night in the Superdome. The Beast Incarnate didn't need a push, and it's not as if he was the next star in waiting that would have been catapulted to the main event scene for years to come. He was already there, despite some questionable booking since his 2012 return. Reports have stated that Taker was always going over until the day of WrestleMania, when Vince McMahon changed his mind, hoping to completely shock the fans and give WrestleMania a huge talking point. In fairness to WWE, they didn't exactly waste Brock's win, as the Beast went on to destroy John Cena at SummerSlam and become the WWE Champion, and he then embarked on a fantastic run afterwards. That being said, The Undertaker's 21-0 streak probably should never have ended. Something so illustrious and fabled probably could have been retired intact, and another regret is that the match just wasn't that great. Taker got a big concussion early on, and it took away from the match in a big way. Something like the streak is very unlikely to be repeated. It's debatable that someone will even compete at WrestleMania 21 times, let alone win all 21 of them. That's how big the streak was. If anything, it became bigger than the World Championship match when it came to importance at WrestleMania. Whether it should have ended or not is still up for debate, but one thing that can't be denied, the sight of a fallen phenom in the forefront of the image of 21-1 is the biggest shock in WrestleMania history. Well, there you have it. Those were the top 5 shock moments in WrestleMania history. Do you agree? Don't forget to like and subscribe to One Stop Wrestling on YouTube and go and check out our other videos. And we will see you next time for another One Stop Wrestling podcast.